You never know what's in a book until you pick it up and you read it one page at a time. So Build with Pros is a book that doesn't really exist anymore because we're not reading the bodybuilding books. They don't make them anymore. So here we are in the digital age where you can actually fast track your progress listening from someone that's in the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame, Lifetime Achievement Award winner, a professional at the highest degree for 13 consecutive years. How I did it. It's not impossible. It's not rocket science. But having Build with Pros in your pocket at your disposal will be the moral compass to your fitness journey in terms of what you should do, what you think you can do, and what's possible to do. For $50, you can get a wealth of knowledge here at Build with Pros. You're going to spend $50 just on a couple of workouts at the gym. You might spend $50 on some energy drinks or some supplements that you think are going to be real great for you for that moment. This is something for $50 that's going to last for a lifetime. And don't forget, get your 20% off by entering your discount code at MTP20.
Hey guys, Steve here, Muscle Talks podcast with Shawn Ray. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good.
We've made it to the final episode. Sorry to talk over you then. Final episode, episode 7. I hope everyone's enjoyed 1 to 6, and I hope you've invested into Built with Pros. If you haven't, go to builtwithpros.com. And if you want, use MTP20 to get 20% off. But most importantly, invest in yourself, invest in knowledge. And this episode here, episode 7, is Train with Purpose, targeting muscle, mastering form, and preventing injury. In this episode with Shawn, he'll dive in deep into the mindset and mechanics of muscle-specific training, from targeting weak points to building a strong mind-muscle connection. I love that. This conversation unpacks the principles that help bodybuilders and everyday lifters train with purpose. Listeners will learn how to prevent injury, enhance recovery, and make every rep count. Before we go into the first question, what do you think about that, Shawn?
No, it takes me back to when I was a teenager, 18 years old, talking with Chris Dickerson, former Miss Olympia in 1982. One of the first conversations we had over the telephone, mind you, while he's talking to me, I'm looking at his picture hanging on my wall as Mr. Olympia. Hadn't met the guy yet. But some of the words that he was telling me, because he was 43 years old when he won the Mr. Olympia. So he was like on the back 9 of his career and almost done in 1982. And to give you context, he won it in 82. And I was competing with him in 1990 at the Arnold Classic Championships. Crazy that we came full circle. But one of the things that he told me were, do the things that I'm doing, and one day you'll get there. It sounded pretty simple. Just copy me, do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It sounded relatively easy. For an 18-year-old to hear that from the number 1 bodybuilder on the planet 2 years after he won the Olympia, it could have gone in one ear and out the other. But I heard it, I played it over and over again, and as you just spoke to me, I heard Chris Dickerson from heaven saying to an 18-year-old boy, just do what I do. And I took that as the gospel because I didn't know the level of his intensity. I didn't know the dedication to his craft. I didn't know how serious he was in becoming Mr. Olympia. Just do what I do. I read the magazines. I watched the videos. I went to the shows. I studied. But in the back of my mind, I was doing what Chris Dickerson was doing. I was eating, sleeping, and training. I was putting one foot in front of the other. I was not missing workouts. I was getting my naps in. I was getting my calories in. I was trying to push myself, train with bigger, stronger guys, and stay the course. And I did what he did. And lo and behold, 4 years into my journey, I was standing on the Mr. Olympia stage. He wasn't there in 1988, but I was there. And it was an amazing process because it's very hard to be original in bodybuilding, create something that no one else has ever done. So we're a bunch of copycats. So when I'm telling you do it the Shawn Ray way, that's the same way as the John Brown way. It's the same way as the Chris Dickerson way, Samir Banu way. It's a combination of collectibles that I've studied. And what I'm hoping for is our viewers, our listeners are hearing me talk, and they're taking little nuggets from me all of which are not original, but I applied them to the degree that I thought I could become the best in the world, and I helped manifest that. Now, that being said, not everybody wants to be the best in the world, but to be good, to change the way you look, to change the way you feel, there are things you have to do that I've done. Maybe not on the same mental level, maybe not on the same physical level, but the steps that I take, you will have to take. You will have to go through that process to get there. Because again, I'm stepping in footprints. I'm not leaving footprints. I'm following the guys that were there before me. And if you follow that path, that philosophy of eat, sleep, and train, be dedicated, be disciplined, be thirsty, be hungry, be focused, when the career is over, you can take your foot off the gas a little bit. And all of those steps that I've learned, I can still do to maintain a certain level of physicality. But none of this stuff that we're talking about is original to me. I'm regurgitating all the things that I've learned. And I think that applies to the senior and the teenager.
I think sometimes, and also what I'm hearing is to know what the finish line looks like, to know what the journey takes, is to know or hear it from someone that's been there. And to even get close enough or to know you're heading in the right direction, you need to get it from the number one in the world. And Shawn, you've done that. You've heard from the number one in the world. You've been around the number ones in the world, and you yourself have been the number one in the world. So again, a great investment for people to do and buy into Built with Pros. And let's start with why muscle targeting matters. This session focuses on working smart, not just harder. Why is understanding muscle targeting and function such a game changer for serious results?
Well, I mean, listen, not everybody jumps into bodybuilding and goes, I want a complete physique. I want a huge physique. Most of the time, it's I want to get bigger arms, right? I hear that a lot. How do I build up my legs? How do I get the sweep on my quad? How do I get my six pack? And it is targeting. Everyone comes in here with different ambitions. And so when I was lifting weights, I was lifting weights from football, the big three: squats, deadlift, and bench. I didn't know anything about triceps and deltoids and trapezius and calves. That wasn't part of my introduction to weight training. It was just the big three: squat, deadlift, and bench. And then we go run and run into each other. But as you get more involved in the physique and recognizing who you are and what you want, we all have different aspirations. Some guys want a really big, wide back so they get a nice little V-taper. Other guys want the 22-inch arms to impress the girls at the beach. Some guys want the big Lou Ferrigno chest. So it comes down to personal preference on what you're trying to target. But as you target your favorite, there's certain exercises that you will favor. There's certain body parts that you like to do. They're enjoyable to work. You'll recognize that there are other things that you have to keep in balance. You can't just have big quads because you have hamstrings to support them. And if you got these big quads and big hams, you've got these calves that you got to build up. Then you realize you don't want to be bottom heavy, so you got to work on the upper body. And vice versa. If your upper body's heavy, you got to work on the lower body. So that's when you start to get in touch with bodybuilding. So you can target certain areas, develop that big peak on your bicep, but be mindful that there's a tricep that's attached to that bicep. And if you want balance, then you're going to have to approach that tricep with the same vigor, same intensity as you do your biceps. And that's when you start to realize, I got big arms. I got to build up my shoulders. I got big shoulders. I've got to increase my upper pec. And then you can get very specific as you start getting into competition. I want to work the inner quads. I want to work on my glutes. I want to work on my intercostals, on my abdominals. I want to build up my trapezius at the base of my neck. You start targeting things as you start getting into that competitive realm because you know they exist. But I don't expect in the beginning, everyone goes in there and says, I want to build on my complete physique, and they take it all on. They target. They pick the things that they're comfortable with, and then they start doing the things they're uncomfortable with because the lagging, weaker body parts are typically the hardest ones, and people shy away from that in the beginning. But as you get thirsty for competition, balance, completeness, you'll start to approach each body part with the same amount of intensity, and then you'll start to balance things out.
Love that. Pairing muscle groups intelligently. You bring up common questions. Do I train biceps with back? Well, we all bring up these questions, should I say. Do I train bicep with back, tricep with chest, bicep with back, tricep with chest? How should people think about pairing muscle groups effectively? God, I ask that question myself every day. Why do you suggest training weak body parts first, which I've just discovered, funny enough? And how does that shift performance?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. It's like talking about someone's eating habits.
Mm,
Like, I don't know what the order of which you eat your meals, but let's just say you're bodybuilding and you're eating 5 square meals a day.
I am.
You might wake up in the morning and have spaghetti and meatballs. I might wake up and have a steak and eggs, others chicken and rice. It's not the order in which you eat your food. The food's all going to the same place. When I wake up to train, where my mind's going to take me, if I've already done my arms, it's time for me to do my chest, next day my back. I'm very instinctive when it comes to training. So it doesn't necessarily matter how you pair them. I've done 6 days straight with John Brown and very few survivors. We start off Monday, chest, shoulders, and arms. On Tuesday, back and legs. Wednesday, chest, shoulders, and arms. Thursday, back and legs. Friday, chest, shoulders, and arms. Saturday, back and legs. Nothing after that
I'm done.
is ever going to compare to that. It's brutal. We're training every body part literally
I'm
3
done.
times a week.
I'm done.
And there's no time for recovery. That was my introduction.
Yeah.
So anything after that in terms of pairing the body parts was a walk in the park for me because I was introduced and baptized into bodybuilding. It's such a hard pace. It's like watching the race cars go around and then you're on the outside and then you got to jump into the race. You got to build your speed up to jump into the race to get on the track. For me, it was just out of the kitchen right into the lion's den with John Brown, chest, shoulders, arms, back, and legs. And what it did was it broke me from the ideology that you have to have a certain routine.
It does.
This is art at its finest when you can decide how you want to work your body based on how you feel, based on where you train, based on what time you want to work out. So we can all get to that finish line, whether you're doing chest, shoulders, and arms on day 1, back and legs on day 2, or if you're doing the push-pull, chest in the morning, back in the evening, shoulders and arms together. It doesn't matter what that looks like. The judges are not going to ask, and the mirror's not going to give you instruction. You're an artist. Go at your own pace. If you only want to train one body part per day, that might be enough for you. For me, I may need to do it twice a day. For John Brown, he had to do it 3 times a day. We know it worked because he won 3 Mr. World titles, 2 Mr. Universe titles, and he wound up going to the Mr. Olympia. So while it's asinine to think that you can train that way and grow, one only need to look at John Brown so we know it works. Mike Mincer, Dorian Yates, they said less is more. They train very slow and very brief workouts, lots of rest and recovery. It worked for them, both of them. They're both very successful bodybuilders. Yeah. I'm perpetual motion. I like to break my workouts into 2 sessions a day. So I train twice a day. A lot of people say that's overtraining, but my workouts were like 30 to 45 minutes with the weights. So I had plenty of time to rest and recover in between. I would not prescribe someone a very specific workout because I don't know what you need. Your body will let you know. I learned my body through trial and error, which means I tried everything. And I didn't find one that stuck. That variety is what helped develop my body because I didn't stick with just one. I do something for a week or 2 weeks or maybe a month, and then I change it up. You've got to change it. But I am the product of trial and error, a product of experimentation. There was nothing on paper that I could follow to the letter of the law for a contest prep or for a year's worth of training that I could look back and say, this is how I did it. I did it very instinctively. I did it very different in terms of my training partners, the different gyms, the different amount of weights, the different amount of reps. That's the beauty of bodybuilding, is there's no script. Get used to trying and failing, experimenting, and also get used to following. I followed other people's workouts just to take my mind off of being the leader all the time. It didn't have to be the maestro leading the band every time I went in the gym because I was a superior athlete. Sometimes it was nice to follow someone else's idea of how to train. And then that's where you start to get excited. That's where I kept it interesting because I was not always the captain of the ship. Sometimes I was a passenger.
It makes so much sense. I mean, at the end of the day, to try to keep up with John Brown, first of all, was hard, and it was sometimes the introduction to most gyms in that era. But when you look at the physiques in that era, and if you look at John Brown's results, that speaks enough in itself. And I think people should hear that, especially when we've got people trying to biohack on social media, find loopholes and tell you that this is the winning formula, when sometimes you have to look, because what you see is the results that will be given. And people like yourself that have been up on walls, gym posters, a poster in my room, and the pinnacle of the sport, I've always looked upon you to think that is what bodybuilding looks like. That's, if I do what Shawn does, that's how I'm going to look. So Built with Pros is, if you like what you see, you like what you hear, and you want to know what it takes, then you are a true representation. And again, let me say, Built with Pros is the way to go. So having said that, form versus heaviness, the longevity equation. You said you look the way you train. Why does form and full range of motion matter more than heavy weights? You talk about Ronnie Coleman and Dorian, which you just did, going deep into the danger zone with weights. What's your message to lifters who try to copy extreme intensity without thinking long term, which I agree?
This is, again, sometimes following routines, whether it's eating or training, of people that have been there is a good way to find out whether or not that's what you like, that's what you respond to, and that it's enjoyable. Because for me, my entire process was enjoyable through trial and error. I was never a power lifter. I was never a strong man. I also was never 300 pounds. And Ronnie and Dorian were both 300 pounders. And Lee Haney, prior to them, was a 260, 270 pound off-season bodybuilder. Doing what they were trying to do would have probably tore me up.
Yeah.
It could have broken me down. And it's dangerous, because a smaller guy trying to lift heavier guys' weights is a recipe for disaster if you're not built that way. Franco Columbu and Arnold, perfect combination, because Franco had the strength, Arnold had the physique, and I think the two fed off of each other, and they both carried each other to the highest level that they could go, and it worked for them. I was a solo artist. I didn't have a teammate. I didn't have a Franco Columbu. I had lots of training partners, but I didn't have that guy that was there throughout my whole career to play chess with, to work out with, to do the strongman with, and all that. So Arnold and Franco had nice synergy. In bodybuilding, you'll find it is a very independent road. You're on your own, because this is something I chose to do, not all my friends. It's very hard to carry someone along with me on this journey. And even when I go in the gym, I've got fitness influencers, I've got masters guys. I don't have a lot of Olympians training for the Olympia. So this is where the variety comes in. And also the smarts to avoid injury. I was not a power lifter, so I wasn't trying to prove my strength in the gym. I was a bodybuilder. I was trying to build my body. And to do that, I needed reps and I needed sets. If I was going to slow everything down just to figure out how strong I was, then I would have become a power lifter. So I didn't do what Ronnie and Dorian were doing, namely because I was not their size and I wasn't their strength. And so they were bad examples of what I was trying to be. Plus, their form wasn't the best, and I knew the difference in good form and bad form. I also knew and had the awareness that bad form creates bad habits, and those bad habits lead to injury. Let's go down the list of injuries that Dorian had. Let's go down the list of injuries that Ronnie had. They're numerous. I've never had an injury throughout my entire professional career and into my retirement. I think my intuition served me well, not to try to follow those guys and do my own thing of trial and error. So it shows that there's different ways to the top, but you got to find the way independently on what you're capable of doing and surround yourself with like-minded individuals. I knew I couldn't beat the mass monsters, so I've got to sculpt and create the same way that Frank Zane did, Samir Madhu did, Muhammad Makawi, and Lila Brada, none of which are ever going to be mentioned as strong people. Although Samir Madhu says he was super, super unworldly strong. Maybe he was. I didn't see it. He was before my time. But for the guys he was training in and around, Frank Zane and Chris Dickerson, he probably was like Superman by comparison. I was pretty strong at 230 pounds in my off season, but the last powerlifting event I did was when I was 18 years old in high school. I tested my strength. Bodybuilding, they never asked me how strong I was. So I knew I would never wind up challenge myself on strength on a single lift because it wasn't relative to building the body that I was trying to create. So you have to figure out what style of training you like. And that's the beauty of this. Well, I'm giving you advice. You can also compare that against the guys before me, the guys after me, and you can draw your own conclusion the same way that I did. So to narrow it down and to make it very simple, listen and try whatever resources you have, but you'll find very few like myself who say, I'm just an example of a lot of experimentation. And if it worked for me, it can work for you. That's the reason for Build with Pros. I'm trying to dumb it down to its easiest, lowest common denominator, that none of us have a blueprint on exactly what you need to do. Because now you're the artist. You're the person who's scripting your physique, your look, your future, whether it's on the Olympia stage or whether it's just on the golf course. But we know one thing. What I did worked. And so I'm trying to regurgitate that to the listener, that it doesn't have to be written and scripted all the time. Sometimes you just have to hear the words. I started off by saying, I remember what Chris Dickerson said back in 1984, 2 years after he won the Olympics. It's 40 years ago. You know, I was in high school. I've been out of high school for 40 years. So if I can remember the seeds that were planted by a deceased Mr. Olympia who was on the top of his game at the time he was, you can certainly hear what I'm saying and apply that to what you're trying to do with your body in terms of keeping it simple. Keep it simple.
Love that. Mind muscle connection, the real superpower. What is the mind muscle connection, and how did mastering it change your physique? Can someone actually train this ability over time, or is it something you just born with?
No, it comes with it, right? Like, so again, we were talking Stevie Wonder in one of our previous one where
Yes.
he's playing by sound. He's not playing by sight. He's not looking at those black and white keys. And when he touches them, the music and the magic happens. I can go in the gym and grab the rowing machine and pull it into my stomach and envision myself rowing a boat, right? But I'm pulling with my arms. I'm doing this exercise for my back. So I need to put my mind in touch with my back, get the vision of a boat out of my mind and start getting the vision of what my back needs to look like. Stop pulling with my biceps and start pulling with my back so I can feel it. So I have to put my mind into the exercise. And when my mind's into the exercise, it can go right into the muscle. You have to visualize, and Lee Haney was correct when he said stimulate, don't annihilate. I have to stimulate the muscle, so I've got to feel it. Otherwise, I'm just moving weight. Otherwise, I'm just wasting time. I'm rowing a boat, and that's not why I'm doing these seated rows. I'm trying to build my back, so I need to get the maximum stretch and the best contraction, and I need to feel that. I need to pull my elbows back so I can feel my back stretch and contract. I have to think about what I'm doing. When I'm curling the dumbbells, I'm looking at my bicep. I'm feeling the contraction. I got to stretch it all the way down and pull it all the way up like a double bicep. If my mind's not in my muscle, the muscles are not going to respond the way that I want them to. Because when you're on stage, and by the time I hit the stage, I know every feeling of every fiber because I practice. When I throw up that double bicep or the back double bicep, I can feel the muscles that I trained and conditioned through lifting weights. You have to put your mind into the exercise. That way, your mind's not wandering. You see people in the gym looking at the girl walking across the room, going through the motion. The guys that are going through the motions are not going to wind up at the finish line. Not when you have somebody like me who's thinking about how this muscle should feel when I pose it and I flex it and I squeeze it and I condition it. And my mind is in tune with every leg extension, trying to etch in the detail on the sides of my quadriceps. I can see it. I can feel it. I'm rest pausing. I'm squeezing. I'm contracting. That person is going to have the advantage of someone who's just going through again, the basketball correlation I make. I can pick up a ball. I can shoot it through the hoop and have fun. Or I can practice how I dribble, practice how I stand before I release and flip the wrist and watch the ball come off my fingertips going into the hoop. And through repetition, those misses are going to be makes. And maybe one day I can get paid to do that if I'm disciplined enough. But I've got to know from the moment I touch that ball and I dribble it to the position of my feet, to the shoes on my feet, to the position when I go to throw it up, there's a technique involved. And if you're doing it right, repetitiously, Kobe Bryant, Steph Curry, Magic Johnson, I mean, the names just come to mind when it looks like they're just walking and breathing. It's an extension of what they repetitiously practice. Bodybuilding is very similar. All those long pulley rows, all those dumbbell curls. By the time I step on that stage, I'm just walking through the motions because I've done all the work. But I've done the work because mentally I was in tune with the body. Mentally, these guys are in tune. The basketball is an extension of their fingertips. But to get to the fingertips, they got to have the right shoes. They have to have the right foot position. They've got to have the right vision on the finish line, on the basket. When I'm on that stage, I know what a side chest is supposed to look like, as well as I know what it's supposed to feel like. But to get to that side chest, I've got to develop the chest. Not only that, I've got to develop my deltoid because you're going to see that. I've got to develop my bicep because you're going to see that. I've got to build my tricep. All that's a part of the side chest. And then looking down, I've got the hamstring and I've got the quad. I've got my calves. I've got the tan. I've got the shaving. I mean, everything comes together because my mind is in tune with it. So you can't leave anything to chance. Lifting weights, anyone can lift weights, but becoming a bodybuilder, it's a little bit more involved. Anyone can dribble a basketball, but to be a professional basketball player, it's a little bit more time consuming. It's a little bit more cerebral, and it's a little bit more of obsessive. So as a pro, I was very obsessive about what I was doing because everything I did was counting. I'm in there doing this for a purpose. I have a finish line. I'm trying to finish a race. This is not me just killing time in my day. This is me trying to get to a destination. When the competition was over, I had to readjust my mindset that now while I'm working out for how I feel, not so much how I look. And then I can tone down the intensity because it's more about the feeling. Everyone's going to be different. Not everyone wants to go to Olympia, but I'm certain that everybody wants to be fit and healthy going into the latter stages of life. You still have to pay attention to what it is you're doing, or you're just wasting time.
All right, guys, quick break. If you're serious about building real muscle and getting your training dialed in, this is for you. Shawn Ray, one of the most respected legends in bodybuilding, has put together a complete program called Built with Pros. It's packed with everything you need to train like a champion. Goal setting, nutrition, mindset, muscle programming, recovery, breaking through plateaus. No fluff, just the real stuff that actually works. And here's the crazy part. It's a one-time payment of just $49.95. That's what most people drop on a tub of pre-workout that fades in a few hours. It'll level up your training for life. And because you're part of the Muscle Talks crew, you get 20% off with code MTP20 at checkout. Go to builtwithpros.com, use code MTP20 at checkout, and start training smarter with Shawn Ray and Built with Pros. You mentioned Kobe Bryant and you mentioned the mind and knowing what you're doing. It's funny, and you mentioned doing rows, and you mentioned, someone walking by, maybe it's a pretty female, whatever it may be. He was on a late night show, and I'm just segueing a little bit out for a moment to tell you connection with your mind and knowing what your purpose is. The Tonight Show guy humorously said, what happens if this beautiful girl walks down the stairs and has got the front row of the seat watching the game? How do you focus, or how does she not take your attention? And he goes, who are you talking about? I don't see anyone. I just see he goes, I see the game. He goes, I don't see nobody. I see the game. I play the game. Yeah. I don't know who's there. They got like he was basically saying, what are you talking about? Who is this person? I will never see him ever. And that's the thing. Well, yes, go ahead.
Coming from a professional bodybuilder who walked across that Olympia stage 13 times, I imagine it's very similar to being in a boxing ring full of 20,000 people. the only thing you see is that guy in front of you.
Exactly. That's what
When you have that basketball and you're in that basketball game, the only thing you see besides the guy in front of you is that rim, because that's where you're trying to
that's
go.
what he was saying.
All of that other stuff in bodybuilding is there for you. If you're in a race car, you have the helmet on, you got your gloves on, and the steering wheel is right here.
Yeah.
It's not out here. It's a tight little steering wheel like this.
Yeah.
You're going 80, 100, 200 miles an hour. The only thing you see is that next turn coming up or that next car pulling next to you. You got to be focused or you're just wasting time. And I didn't have that kind of time to waste on the way to those Olympias. So you could have put anything in front of me in the gym. You could have put anything in front of me on the stage. My routines, the numbers of views on my routines on YouTube are there because I put in the time and the effort to make a routine, number one. But number two, the people look at it because they're realizing that that's not what they're seeing today. They're not seeing routines, but they go back and they see what was possible and they watch it kind of mesmerized because it's not impossible. The guys can do it. The problem is the passion and the focus isn't there. When I'm on that stage doing my posing routine, yes, I'm posing for the audience in front of me, but in my mind, the choreography is going, I'm following the choreography that's in my mind. The mind is leading me on every one of those spins and the poses and the facial expressions and the inhale and the exhale. It's all coming from the focus here. I don't see this 10,000, 5,000, 3,000 people. They're watching, but it's one big blur. I can't focus on the people because in my mind, I'm playing the routines that I've been practicing over and over. I imagine a basketball player and a boxer, they're focused on what they've been practicing. Left, left, cool, left, left, cool. It's repetition. And then it manifests itself. And the audience, we're there looking, but we don't see the crowd. And that's what elevates the performance level of any professional, not just the bodybuilder. Focus, mind control.
I love that. Customizing workouts for weak points. Your journey targeting lagging body parts like your hamstrings or lower back, not particularly meaning yours, but if we were to say your, how should someone identify their weak points and designing training around them? I'm probably asking this question. You've said, do the uncomfortable stuff. Why is that often where the best progress lives?
Because it's easy to play to your strength. You know, I'm right-handed. So it's easy to start everything off with my right hand, grab my drink. It's my dominant hand. It's my control hand. But in bodybuilding, we have two sides. And sometimes the judges will direct you, quarter turn to your right. I better know how to stand to my right if I'm normally turning to my left when I practice. Quarter turn to the rear. You've got to be able to adapt on both sides. So when I practice my side chest to the right, I also practice it to the left. I want balance. I want symmetry. I want it to look natural. When I go in the gym, knowing that my right hand is my dominant hand and I'm going to do alternate curls, I like to start with my weakest first. Because if it starts to give out early, I know that my dominant side will wind up surpassing it. I want balance. I want completeness. I want it to look even. So I always like to start with my weakness first. You know, if my back is my weakest part, let me start the week off with my weakest body part. So I'm at my peak. I'm stretched. I'm refreshed. And I want to do back at the end of the week after I've done legs because now I'm beat down, I'm tired, lethargic, and I don't have the energy because I spent it all doing my chest and my legs. And now I'm on my weakest part, which is the last part of the week. I just think it's a psychological approach to reminding myself that those are areas I want to improve. If I know that my calves are slight, I want to start my workout with my calves because I'm going to be at my peak, energetically speaking, when I go in the gym. And I want to make sure I attack that because I don't want to be weak, tired, or fatigued, or pressed for time that I forget to get to my calves, my weakest body part. If I do them first, I can't forget. If I do them first, I'm focusing on trying to bring that balance and that harmony. It's a thinking man's game. You don't go and build a house on a whim. You got to have a blueprint. You've got to draw it out. You've got to then measure things. You've got to get the materials. You have to have the tools. And then you have to make time to build it. And we know that that's not impossible because we've seen some magnificent houses being built while you compare it back to the early 1900s to what we're seeing built now, carbon fiber type houses, super mega type houses, things that are like, sunken in bathtubs and recessed walls and that recessed lighting. The body is the same. You have to be able to map out in your mind what it is that you want to look like. I had the finish line in front of me watching Chris Dickerson as a teenager, who was very similar to me. I saw the finish line. I thought, if it's possible for him at my size, maybe I can do that. I can build that. And that was my blueprint. So that's why I studied. That's why I read. That's why I watched. That's why I went to the shows, to get as much information as I could. And then I started strategizing on how I was going to achieve that. And it takes, there's layers. So start with your weaknesses so they become your strength. I haven't trained my calves in I don't know how long, and people still think I work them every single day. I don't have to anymore. You know why? They were my weak body part. I built them up and made them strong, and now they're not going away. They're there. They're built. So I think you have to strategize what's your importance. What's important to you? If you want a wide back, then you're going to focus on that wide back in the beginning. You want bigger calves, start with that. You want to balance out the size and strength of your arms, start with your weakness first, prioritize it. Everything else will fall into place, but you have to have a blueprint, and that blueprint starts in your mind, and then you go about implementing how you're going to get there.
Love that. Precision, targeting, and technique. What's the difference between just lifting weights and actually targeting a muscle with precision?
Yeah.
How can things like tempo, squeezing, and controlled movement totally change a workout's result?
Well, again, you're in the right place. We're in the mindset space right now. This is all cerebral.
It is.
Anybody can go lift weights again. So this is all about the mind, which I think is the strongest muscle, because we've got so many distractions. There's so many things going on in our lives. The phone can ring right now, we're going to get distracted. The doorbell can ring right now, we're going to get distracted. But when it comes down to bodybuilding, competition, well, I was an early riser, do it in the morning before everybody comes at me and life takes over. It's almost like going to church. Not everybody's a spiritual person, but bodybuilding is a very religious, spiritual journey that's very individual. Kevin Levrone said he used to sleep on the floor with his guns as he prepared for the Mr. Olympia. Now, it must have been a psychological advantage because those guns have nothing to do with bodybuilding, but he felt in his mind, he told me in retirement, that he was going to war, and he had to get his mind, he had to suffer, and he had to get his mind familiar with going to battle. And the guns that were empty were constant reminders that he was going to war. The hard surface and the floor was putting himself in an uncomfortable place. You don't want the soft comfort of a nice fluffy bed and pillows. He slept on the floor. This guy was serious. Kevin Levrone is a 4-time Mr. Olympia runner-up. He's a 2-time Arnold champion. Won over 20 professional bodybuilding shows. Started his own supplement line, which is in many, many countries. He's living off of the sacrifice that he made in his mind that he was going to war on the Olympia stage. So everything else that happened after that is a result of that mindset he put himself in. And we all put ourselves in a different mindset getting ready for a show as big as the Olympia. Some suffer more than others, but we all are sacrificing various things. I sacrificed relationships. I've sacrificed holidays, birthdays. I was in uncomfortable situations, isolating myself in the afternoon with my windows with aluminum foil on it, where my mindset was going to take me to a place where I thought success was going to lie. And of course, it doesn't always come in the form of victory. Success for me, I wound up on over 100 magazine covers. I saw the world 3 or 4 different times over. There's no place I want to go because bodybuilding has already taken me there. I've met the biggest of celebrities in Hollywood and in acting and in boxing and in football. My childhood heroes as a result of my sweat equity in the gym. My mind took me there. So again, When we start talking about weaknesses and we're talking about mindset, where your mind takes you is where your body will go. And I think some people are better than that, better than others mentally than they are physically. Some people have the physical attributes to look the best, but mentally they're too weak to see the finish line and do the dieting and take on the competition. So strengthen the mind first. That's where things come. Again, I got introduced by a guy that beat the crap out of me week after week after week. But my mind wouldn't let me just quit because it was too hard. Something had to be waiting for me if I just get through the day. If I can get back and get through the week. If I can get through this next contest prep. And the mind gets stronger and stronger. And then building up my calves. That's a mental thing. I'm looking at my calves. They're not where I want them to be. My back, it's not where I want to be. When I retired, I didn't hear anybody say anything that was negative about my calves. When I retired, nobody said anything that was negative about my back. I accomplished certain goals quietly and over a period of time because I just kept at it. And I think if you just keep at it, it will separate you from the guy that's lifting weights. It might take you to become a competitor or top competitor, but we know it can take you to the Olympia because I did it. I did it. The guy told me I was going to be teenage national champion, and I did it. I'm not special, but there's some things you have to believe when you start on that path that are possible. But to get there, there's some things you're going to have to sacrifice. There's some things that are going to make you uncomfortable. You're going to have to do these exercises that you don't necessarily like, but they work. So with that being said, my whole philosophy, my entire approach starts here before I start working my body, before my feet hit the ground. There's something going on cerebral about the organization of my meals, my training, my rest, and my recovery, along with my supplementation, that happens in my head that I'm not necessarily getting out of a magazine, a book, or someone in my ear. You got to condition your mind that every day, like Kevin Levrone, was war when you're getting ready for a competition. And when you're in war, there's so many things that can distract you in our minds that can kill our dream. So you don't want those dream killers to creep in to detract you from what it is you're trying to do, because injury is just on the other side of doing something where you're not paying attention.
Well, that leads us into mistakes that lead to injury, which is now the physical side. Why are some of the most common mistakes you see in the gym that leads to injury? You mentioned ego lifting. How can people check their ego before they get hurt?
Well, again, it's a lapse in judgment. It's taking your mind. Your mind may be wandering when you're doing what you've done a million times before, right? A lot of guys that got hurt go, I've done that a million times before. But on this occasion, they let their mind wander. They tried too much. They didn't warm up properly. Or they're trying to impress someone, and that ego comes in. You're doing something for someone else because they're bigger, because they challenge you, because they said you need 10 more pounds. You've got to know your limitations, but you learn your limitations through repetition. I knew when I was on the diving team and when we were practicing how far from the shore I could swim into the ocean and safely make it back. I knew when to turn around. I knew in the swimming pool how deep the deep end was, because I would try to go down holding my breath, touch the bottom, and come back up. I knew what my limitations were for how long I could stay underwater before I've got to come up to breathe. That's through practice. You learn how much you can lift through repetition and through practice. And then you get to this point where you know this is too heavy. And you know that if I go for one more rep, it might be too much. That comes instinctively, independently and individually. Don't be bullied or pressured into doing something that you just can't do. You know you're not supposed to do, because that's where injury is waiting for you. It's waiting when someone else is challenging you to do something you've never done before. You got to do something that you believe you can do.
Recovery and longevity tactics. You talk about recovery with passion, ice, massage, even golf or tennis. Sounds like leisurely stuff. Why is mixing things up so important for recovery? What's your advice for people who fear taking time off or backing off intensity? That's the question I would ask.
This sport is, again, it's a cerebral sport. You can become very obsessive compulsive.
Oh, tell me about it.
And you get so focused on the goal that you lose sight of the goal. And then you're caught in this vortex of eat, sleep, train, no one else matters, nothing else matters. And it's almost like becoming a bulimic, anorexic type person. And you can get caught up into body dysmorphia. And these are things that are real. You can become antisocial. You can become very aggressive. You can also become very depressed. These are things that are very common in bodybuilding because it's coupled with dieting, with isolation, expectation, pressure of performing, drugs, the everyday grind of just trying to put one foot in front of the other, finances, relationships, the whole 9 yards. You can put too much weight on yourself, and then you go beat the hell out of your body in the gym. Now you're fatigued, you're tired, you're mentally exhausted, and maybe you're working, maybe you have kids, maybe you're taking care of a parent or an elderly person, and then your frustrations can manifest onto someone else in a negative way because you're having a hard day, because you're fatigued, you're yelling at your spouse, you're fighting with your parents, or you're being mean to your siblings. You have to find that break in going for that singular goal of competition by going to a movie, go walk on the beach, go ride your bicycle, go volunteer at an elderly care, babysit, do something that's outside the wheelhouse. It will put you back in touch with feelings and emotions that the weights, the gym, and the diet and the stage do not allow you to feel. I was always very balanced in keeping relationships separate from my bodybuilding journey. My childhood friends I went to school with, they're very diversified. Construction, a doctor, a lawyer, a housewife, different friends that had different conversation. They weren't talking about me. They weren't caught up with the Mr. Olympia. And so those conversations gave my mind a break from the next coming meal, the aches and the pains, the expectation of my rivals on stage, what I'm going to do in the Olympia. So sometimes you got to get out of this funk by just walking out the door and walking the neighborhood, right? Maybe going to help someone do something that is way outside of what you're comfortable doing. Bowling, tennis, chess. There's lots of activities that you can engage in. Today, I don't see that. I see a lot of guys that are engaged in social media. So they just stay in the house. They have the world at their fingertips. They can communicate with their fans and their friends and their coaches, and they don't have to go out. They don't even have to talk. It's all text messaging. The human interaction is gone. I highly recommend some people that get in a rut, that get overly focused on that career goal of becoming Mr. Olympia or Mr. Next Door, to walk outside and try to be normal. Go outside the comfort zone and do things that you're not normally do. Help your next door neighbor. Volunteer somewhere. Find something that you can do once a week that's not a part of bodybuilding. Clean stables at a horse ranch, right? There's a million different things that you can come up with when you start thinking about it. Help these kids selling lemonade. And that was good for me. I did my entire career at home in the neighborhood I was born in. And so I had lots of resources and friends in the neighborhood that I could go and talk to that didn't really give a crap about my bodybuilding.
Training partner, or in inverted commas, rabbit, pushing with purpose. You call your training partners rabbits. What do you mean by that? Yeah, what do you mean by that? And how can someone find, sorry about that, I'm asking myself, what do you mean by that? How can someone find a training partner who elevates their game? What's the balance between pushing and staying in your own lane?
Yeah, a rabbit to me is a pace car.
Right.
So if you have a race, they'll have a pace car that jumps out and leads to set the pace of the race. And so sometimes when I trained with younger bodybuilders that were hungry, they couldn't wait. They're so eager. Let's go, energy. And I like that because they're young, they're hungry, they want to do what I did. And they made great training partners. And it wasn't always the same person. Most of the time they were strangers. But I love the rabbit because they start off fast and then you catch them and then you vanquish them and you discard them. So for me, it was always this encouraging invitation. Let's go have fun. And then there came this stark reality for them that this is a professional bodybuilder I'm dealing with that's trying to be number one in the world. And if you take that bodybuilding component, translate that into the boxing world, which is my mentality the entire career, stepping into the ring to be a sparring partner with Mike Tyson, sparring partner with Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Joe Frazier, all the greats. You don't step in the ring to have fun with those guys. They're world champions. They're trying to stay on top, and they do not play. They practice the way they fight. And I always had that in my mind. That mentality was instilled in me that training in the gym is practice that leads to the fight. And if you're going to be in the fight, you got to practice the way you fight. That type of mentality is different than someone that goes to the gym to lift weights. I never went to the gym to lift weights. I was going to beat the weights up. Oh, I was going to beat up the training partner. I was going to spar. It was going to be a fight. And you carry that with you because once you have a few good fights under your belt in the gym, you look for those fights in other gyms with other people. So you need the rabbit. You need that big, strong guy that comes in and thinks that they're all that, because I got to chop them down like Paul Bunyan. I got to take them into an area that they're not comfortable with, because it's not about how much you lift in bodybuilding. It's how you look. And so I knew that training with stronger bodybuilders, I can fatigue them. It's going to be a 12-round fight. I'm not going to knock them out in the first 2 or 3 rounds. It's going to be a 12-round fight, and I've got to make them weak. I've got to pick up the pace, increase the repetitions, do the giant sets, make them fatigue out, and then I can win that fight. This is a psychological approach that I think helped me get to the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame, and it worked. It doesn't work for everyone, but it worked for me.
I guess if you pushed them, it ultimately pushed you. So it always.
Yes.
So that's exactly right.
Give and take.
Give and take. Last question here. Your body is the race car. You compare your body to a race car. It needs the right gas, the right tires, and the right driver. What does that metaphor mean to you? And what's your advice to anyone trying to drive their body to a high level?
If you think in that metaphorical way, you will always be cognizant to check the oil, to check the gas, to look underneath the hood, to kick the tires. If you're spending that kind of money and wasting that kind of time going around in circles, because that's what they think. Oh, you're just going to drive around in circles, and why do you got to go 200 miles an hour, and why do you want to put in the premium high octane fuel, and you're going to spend all that money on those tires, and man, it must be a very expensive sport. I think most athletes, whether they're car drivers, boxers, gymnasts, volleyball players, or basketball, or even boxing, you don't get into the game thinking how much it's going to cost to participate. We're drawn to different sports because it's our passion, because it makes us feel a certain way or look a certain way. And when that passion can be turned into a career, more power to you. When it becomes a career, I guarantee you the driver of that car, even though he's got a pit crew, knows everything that's happening with that car, from the tuning of the engine to the PSI on the tires, to the octane gas that he puts in that thing, to hearing he can feel whether it's the spark plug or whether it's the alternator. I mean, the driver is in tune the same way that we would expect our heart surgeon to be, right? You go to the doctor, when you go in a doctor's office, you're not necessarily looking around for his doctor's license. You're assuming he is a bar certified acting, participating surgeon that's going to be able to figure out what's wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
I've never gone into a doctor's office saying, show me credentials. I'm assuming he's out of office. He knows what he's doing. A race car driver, when he gets in that car, is assuming that the pit crew has done their job. The tires have the right air in them, the fuel, the oil, everything. All he's got to do is turn the key, and the cockpit, the pit crew, they know that driver is qualified to handle a car that's going to go 200 miles an hour and not crash and burn on any mistakes of his own. Why? They saw him circling the lap. They saw him driving and putting in the hours that it's going to take to finish an Indy 500. A bodybuilder professionally, when they step on that Olympia stage, the fans know that he must have done a whole lot to get here because you got to qualify to be there. And this is the number one show in the world. And this is the best of the best, the creme de la creme. The hours that we spend in the gym, the amount of food that we eat, the amount of sacrifice that we made, all that in the fans' eye should be measurable because we don't look like anybody on the planet. We're looking like aliens to them. They've never seen this before in person. And if you've never been to the Olympia, get a ticket and go. You're not going to see these guys just walking around 24-hour fitness, crunch fitness. You don't find them laying on the beach someplace. These guys are aliens. And they're aliens for a reason because they've taken the time to understand their body, the calories, protein, carbohydrates, supplements, posing, every muscle on their body. They've been doing this year in and year out, the same way that little race car driver was doing, driving around in circles all those years. And then you realize, yeah, there's money to be made. There's sponsorship to be made. It gives them the fuel to keep going back and get better. As a bodybuilder, the better you are, the higher you climb, the more money you can make, the more you can reinvest in your body, in your career, and then you become a gym owner. Then you have your supplement line. Then you have T-shirts being made. Then you're traveling the world. You're posing. You got all of that's all a result of the investment in your body through your mind and the training with all of these guys. You have to put in the reps. You've got to get that car on the racetrack and circle and circle and circle. And then you got to look under the hood. You got to kick the tires. Bodybuilder has to know whether they're healthy inside and out. So there's a lot of monitoring going on. We know the calorie count, the carbohydrates, the proteins, the grams, because we are that race car driver. Everything that you see here is a result of me kicking the tires, putting the gas in, checking the gauges, and then performing. I'm performing in the gym. I got to perform on the posing. I've got, the coaches over here guiding me. They're looking at me. I'm taking pictures. I'm doing videos. I am looking at my progress and I'm adjusting accordingly until I'm on that stage to be judged against the best in the world. And we know there can only be one winner, but across the board, they're all winners because they got to the biggest show in the world.
Before I leave it to your final word here on episode 7, Shawn, let me just, let's just put it out there. People often are willing to spend $50 on supplements. That won't really help if their training isn't dialed in. That's the truth. But for the same, let's say $50, they should get the full video collection with you, learn everything they need to truly maximize their potential. Why do you think people hesitate to invest in a video collection or to invest in information, but don't think twice about buying supplements?
Well, I'll tell you, sometimes in the placebo effect, if I take this, then I'll look like that. Taking something
Shortcut.
physical gives them the placebo effect that they're on the right track. That the supplement, which is an insurance policy, is a drug. It's not a drug. Supplements help in deficiencies. That's why they're called supplements. They're supplementing a good nutritional plan, a good workout plan, in addition to good nutrition, rest and recovery. They're supplements. They're not drugs. They're not going to make you look like that if you take this. So it's easier. It's more tangible for some to rationalize that, hey, I'm taking a fat burner, so I'm going to lose fat. Hey, I'm taking an energy pill, so I'm going to have a lot of energy. Hey, I'm drinking the mass gainer, so I'm going to get bigger. But they're not cleaning up their diet. They're not training right. They're not resting right. So the results don't come, but they would rather spend it there because it's tangible. It's in their hand. They can feel it. They can touch it. Knowledge is a different thing. Some people don't have the patience or even the capacity to focus and digest education. Because in bodybuilding, again, it being an individual sport, some of us, our egos, don't allow us to sit back and absorb wisdom. Wisdom, in a lot of cases, can be free, depending on where you spend your time. But for the most part, if I want a good education, I'll probably go to a private school because that's where you get the best education. You know why? The teachers there are qualified to teach on a different level than a public school. The teachers have invested more time in education to teach and pay it forward. In sports, you'll find the highest paid commentators normally are the ones that have played the game because they understand the dynamic of the game. Tom Brady, he was never commentating when he was playing football for, I don't know, 20 years. Never opened his mouth talking football on television. Retires, and they open the vault to give him as much money as he can so we can hear him dissect the game that he played for so many years. That's why he gets the big bucks, because he spent 20 years on the field and he played at the highest level against the very best in the world. He can read defenses. You got a commentator in the box calling a sports game that played for 20 years, he's going to be a whole lot better than the commentator. He's got a good voice, great diction, but never played the game, doesn't know what it's like to get hit, blindsided, to have a blitz come at you, to throw a bomb, to score the game-winning touchdown. I'd rather hear it from the guy that played the game for 20 years. In bodybuilding, when you find bodybuilders that have been to the mountaintop, sharing information with people, we liken that to us sharing our education. We've already been there. We did the work. We sacrificed the years. We put our body on the line. We created careers that we're able to live off of and create businesses. So how do we give back when we're done? We have to share it. We can't take. Some people will open a gym. Some will become personal trainers. Some will be contest promoters. We give back in various ways. But the best thing a bodybuilder with the kind of experience that I have can do is pay it forward. And when you start trying to put a number on what that looks like, you start to lose your audience because it sounds like you're trying to pilfer from the audience. No, I love Michael Jackson. I bought every record he ever had. I wasn't waiting for Michael to come. I could hear him on the radio, but I bought the record because I could hear him. I could hear him anytime I wanted to. The radio was free. Today we paid to listen to music on Apple Music, on iTunes, on Spotify. Some of these things you pay for television, YouTube TV, Netflix, so you can watch your favorite movies whenever. But for some reason, sometimes it doesn't translate when it comes to the kind of wisdom that we share with athletes that have egos, with athletes that think they know everything, with athletes that are following people because they have a big following, but they don't have a track record. I was getting my information from Mr. Olympia as a teenager. I was getting my information from two-time Mr. Universe as a teenager. I walked in the shoes and the footprints that they went down. And if I'm not qualified from 17 to 60 to talk about authoritatively how to get from point A to point Z, then who is qualified? There are no secrets when it comes to what I'm sharing. If it worked for me, I'm telling you, it works for you. But again, you've got to be wise enough to understand and digest the passion, the experience, the tips, the eagerness I have for you to grow, to accomplish your goals. I'm now retired. I've dumbed down the intensity, but the principles still live with me. I want to be healthy for my kids, my grandkids coming up. I'm still doing some of the same things I did. I've dumbed down the intensity, but the principles remain. The things I did are still here cerebrally. The mind was the strongest. My vault is here, and I'm sharing it here and on video. And if you don't want that advice from someone that knows what the hell they're talking about, I'm not sure where you're going to get the right advices from.
Well, I think some people are investing in this touch and feel, but and if I can use your analogy of the race car, we can give you the fuel, we can give you the tires, but can you drive the car?
Amen.
It seems like the video collection appeals, let's say, more to people with a growth mindset rather than those with a fixed mindset. Would you agree with that? And can you explain what type of audience would benefit most from the video collection?
Well, talking about growth, listen, we're talking bodybuilding. So most people out there are eager to grow. Well, I've covered all those principles on how that can happen. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with wishful thinking. I've laid out the steps that you need to take to grow. And a lot of it does start with your perception of you. You know, you may want to be 50 pounds heavier. It's not impossible. We know that's possible. We want the quality. How do I put the 50 pounds on and it's quality? That's going to be age related, number one, because you're not going to do it at 60 years old. You're not going to put on 50 pounds and it's going to be quality. But if you're 19, 20 years old, it can become a reality if you do it right. I don't want to dumb down the approach to training, but there's training, there's building, and then there's exercise. Everyone's different. I went through all three phases. And then there's retirement, which I'll do when I'm 70. And that just means I'll probably be doing more stretching and Pilates than lifting weights. But getting through life in and of itself, this should appeal to the bodybuilder from the standpoint of doing what I did. Like Chris Dickerson did. Chris Dickerson told me, do what I do. Do what I do, you could become a bodybuilder. For those young 20, teen, 30-year-olds or whatever. There's a lot of people out there that don't want that. I used the analogy I talked about earlier. You know, I like playing basketball. I like shooting, running around my friends, trying to make it. I like playing golf. I'm not competitive. So my focus, my intensity is not going to be trying to win the watch on your wrist. I'm just going to play. I'm trying to hit the ball. I'm trying to get in the hole. I'm just exercising. I'm having fun. When it's competitive, you have to change your frame of mind. Because when it's competitive, you're competing against like-minded individuals that take it serious. Playing and competition are two different things. I never played with bodybuilding. I was professionally bodybuilding. Now I'm not professional bodybuilding, so I can have fun. I can enjoy it. There's a big population that just want to have fun and enjoy the art of working out and being fit. All those nuggets are in there. The principles are the same. It's the mindset. If you know you're not training for the Mr. Olympia, you're not going to do half of what I said with purpose and intent and structure. You're just going to go in the gym, grab the towel like normal 9-to-5 type guys, and have fun with the exercise. That's okay. There's room in this for you guys.
Yes.
But for the ones that know what I've done, for the ones that see how small I was when I did it, they're going to start seeing possibilities that maybe they can do it. Maybe they can rise and elevate their game. And they're going to realize that it is a mental game first. And if you're going to go in the gym to play, you're not going to get to where you're trying to go in terms of the body transformation. So you can go in there and play and have fun. Do it the way I did it. Just dumb down the intensity. If you're going to go in there for real and you want to beat some people up and you want to get in that championship fight and you want to play on that big stage, you're going to have to ramp it up with your mindset. And I think I conveyed that my mindset's very intense because I didn't play when it came to bodybuilding.
Well, thank you, Shawn. Episode 7 just dropped. Train with purpose, targeting muscle, mastering form, and preventing injury. You know what? I'm going to leave the last word to you.
Well, I never really am at a loss for words, but what I can tell you, the reason why I started down this path on Build with Pros was because I was a journalist for most of my career, even when I was bodybuilding. I stood on the stage with the biggest and the baddest. I got the accolades, the Lifetime Achievement Award from Ben Weider, and Hall of Fame bodybuilder. I was close to winning that Olympia title a couple of times, won the Arnold Classic, knew or met every single Mr. Olympia to this day on some form or fashion. And that's impressive because we've had 60 years of the Olympia. And to meet and know them personally is different than being a fan. But making something like this, which I think is unique because I've never seen it done before, where a bodybuilder speaks candidly on their journey and breaks down literally the entire process from start to finish. And then to recall various episodes throughout my 40 years of competition, leaving that footprint, I'm hoping to see somebody be able to take this and run with it. Because I know for a fact that when I was doing towel pulls with Chris Dickerson in 1990 backstage at the Arnold Classic, that for both of us, we both felt like that was manifested through Chris Dickerson seeing me as a teenager and telling me I was just like him and I would be great one day. I actually won that competition in 1990. Unfortunately, I failed the drug test and they took the title away and didn't present the prize money. Chris Dickerson was the guy that I warmed up with backstage. And when that was taken away from me, he said, don't worry about it. Go win it next year. I went back in 1991 and I won it the following year. There's power in words, and getting your advice and your information from someone that's been there and done that is an invaluable source of wealth of information that you can apply to yourself. If nothing else, all I need is one to hear what I'm talking about that can change the way they look and feel. Build with Pros for me is a success. It's not a money grab. It's not a gimmick. It's not a supplement. This is real world experience that I lived and I've now shared, that I believe there's a multitude of people that can take this, play it over and over again, apply it to their mental mindset, and get gains and strides out of going out and doing what I did.
Amen.
So it's all working for me.
Amen.
Yeah.